In November 1904, a patent was filed that would fundamentally alter human behavior in ways no one could have predicted. Not a car engine, not electricity, not even a medical breakthrough. It was patent US 775134, a safety razor designed by a traveling salesman named King Camp Gillete. And what makes this story so astonishing is that this wasn't just about shaving. This was about creating a business model so powerful, so psychologically manipulative, that every company you interact with today still uses it. This is the story of how one man's frustration with a dull blade rewired capitalism itself. Let's start with King Camp Gillete in 1895. He's standing in front of a mirror in his Boston apartment, holding a straight razor that's seen better days. The blade is dull, dangerously dull. He's late for work, frustrated, and one careless move away from slicing his face open. This is the 4th time this week. And in that moment of pure annoyance, a thought crystallizes in his mind. What if the blade was disposable? What if you could just throw it away and use a new one? It seems obvious now, but in 1895, this idea was revolutionary. Everything was built to last forever. You sharpened your tools, you repaired your clothes, you fixed what broke. The concept of disposability didn't exist in consumer culture yet. But here's where it gets interesting. Gillette didn't invent this idea out of nowhere. 6 years earlier, he'd had a conversation with his boss, William Painter, the inventor of the crown cork bottle cap. Painter told him something that would echo in his mind for years. "King, you're wasting your time inventing things people use once and keep forever. Invent something they use once and throw away. Then they'll keep coming back to you." That conversation planted a seed. And standing there with his dull razor, Gillette realized he'd found his product. He just had no idea how to make it happen. The technical challenge was enormous. A disposable blade needed to be thin enough to be affordable, but sharp enough to actually work. The metallurgy of the era couldn't produce steel that thin with a reliable edge. Gillette spent the next 6 years sketching designs, approaching investors, and being told by every expert he consulted that his idea was impossible. One metallurgist laughed in his face and said, "You might as well try to make a blade out of paper." But Gillette was stubborn. He'd already failed at multiple business ventures. He'd tried to sell his book about social reform, proposing a utopian city powered by Niagara Falls where everyone worked for a giant corporation. It flopped. He needed this to work. Then in 1901, Gillette met Stephen Porter and William Nickerson, an MIT-trained inventor and machinist. Nickerson looked at Gillette's sketches and saw something no one else had. He didn't just see a razor. He saw a precision manufacturing problem that could be solved with new grinding and tempering techniques. Within months, Nickerson developed a process to create thin, sharp, disposable blades from ribbon steel. They filed the patent application in December 1901. It would take until November 15, 1904, for patent US 775134 to be officially granted. But Gillette didn't wait. He launched the Gillette Safety Razor Company in 1903 with a product that cost him more to make than he sold it for. Let's pause here because this is where the genius reveals itself. In 1903, Gillette sold 51 razors and 168 blades. The company was hemorrhaging money. Investors were panicking. But Gillette understood something profound about human psychology and market economics that wouldn't be formally theorized for decades. He was willing to lose money on the razor because he knew once someone owned it, they were locked into buying his blades forever. The razor wasn't the product. The razor was the trap. The blades were the product. And the blades had to come from Gillette because his patent protected the specific design. By 1904, when the patent was officially granted, sales exploded. That year, the company sold 90,000 razors and 12.4 million blades. 12.4 million. In 1 year, Gillette had tapped into something fundamental. Men didn't want to deal with sharpening straight razors or visiting barbers several times a week. They wanted convenience. They wanted safety. And they were willing to pay for it, again and again and again. The safety razor wasn't just a product. It was a subscription service before subscriptions existed. Now here's where the story takes a darker, more fascinating turn. World War I breaks out in 1914. The US government approaches Gillette with a massive order. They want to supply every American soldier heading to Europe with a free Gillette safety razor and blades. Why? Because gas masks. Soldiers needed to be clean-shaven for gas masks to seal properly against their faces. A beard could mean the difference between life and death in the trenches. Gillette supplied 3.5 million razors and 36 million blades to the US military, for free. Or rather, at cost. Think about what that means. Millions of young men, many of whom had never used a safety razor before, were given Gillette razors and trained to shave every single day. It became part of military discipline, part of masculine identity. When these soldiers came home after the war, what do you think they did? They kept shaving. They bought Gillette blades. Their sons watched them shave with Gillette razors. An entire generation was imprinted with the Gillette brand and the disposable blade model. It was the most effective marketing campaign in history, disguised as patriotic duty. But patent US 775134 wasn't just about the blade mechanism. If you actually read the patent, it's describing a specific T-shaped handle design with a clamping mechanism that holds a thin double-edged blade at the precise angle for shaving. The genius was in the geometry. The blade was held at a 30-degree angle, which was shallow enough to prevent cuts, but sharp enough to shave effectively. Gillette's competitors couldn't copy this design without infringing the patent. They tried. They failed. Gillette sued them into oblivion. The patent gave him a monopoly on safety and convenience. By 1920, Gillette was producing 30 million blades annually. The company was valued at tens of millions of dollars, an astronomical sum for the era. King Camp Gillette himself became fabulously wealthy, though he spent much of his fortune trying to promote his utopian social ideas that no one cared about. He died in 1932, still believing that his safety razor was a stepping stone toward a perfect society, where everyone lived in harmony under one giant corporation. The irony is delicious. He created a product that epitomized individualism and consumer capitalism, while dreaming of collectivist utopia. But here's the part that makes patent US 775134 so historically significant. It didn't just change shaving. It created an entire business model called the razor and blades model that's now used everywhere. Printers and ink cartridges, coffee machines and pods, video game consoles and games, cell phones and apps, streaming services and subscriptions. The core idea is always the same. Give them the razor cheap or even at a loss. Then make your fortune selling them the blades forever. Lock them in. Make switching painful or expensive. Create dependency. And it's not just about pricing. It's about psychology. Once you own a Gillette razor, there's a sunk cost. You've invested in the system. Switching means admitting that investment was wasted. You've also formed a habit. Every morning, you reach for a Gillette blade. It's automatic. It's comfortable. Changing requires mental energy, and humans are fundamentally lazy. We stick with what works even when better options exist. Gillette understood this instinctively. His patent wasn't just a technical document. It was a blueprint for behavioral control. Let's dig deeper into the patent itself because most people have never actually read it. The opening description is remarkably straightforward. My invention relates to razors, and especially to that class in which a removable blade is supported between a guard and cap. Simple, right? But then it gets specific. Claim 1 describes a holder having a handle portion and head portion. Said head portion comprising a guard plate, a cap, and means for securing said cap and guard plate together with the blade clamped between them. This specificity was crucial. It meant competitors couldn't make minor modifications and escape the patent. What's fascinating is how Gillette's legal team defended this patent. In the early 1900s, patent law was still evolving. Gillette faced dozens of challenges from competitors who argued that disposable blades were an obvious idea, that the T-shape handle was generic, that the clamping mechanism was derivative of existing tools. But Gillette won almost every case. Why? Because his lawyers argued that the patent wasn't about one element. It was about the combination of elements working together to create something entirely new. The system was the innovation, not the parts. This legal strategy set a precedent that's still used today. Apple does this with the iPhone. Tesla does this with electric vehicles. They patent not just components, but the integration of components in ways that create unique user experiences. Gillette pioneered this approach. And it worked because patent US 775134 didn't expire until 1921, giving Gillette 17 years of monopoly protection. By the time competitors could legally copy his design, Gillette had become the default brand. He'd won not through patents alone, but through market dominance enabled by patents. Now let's talk about the hidden impacts, the ripple effects that no one saw coming. The disposable blade changed men's grooming habits, yes, but it also changed women's grooming. In 1915, Gillette launched the Milady Décolleté, the first razor marketed to women. The advertising was brilliant and insidious. It convinced women that body hair was unhygienic and unfashionable. Before this, most women in Western cultures didn't shave their legs or underarms. It simply wasn't part of beauty standards. Gillette created the problem and sold the solution. By the 1920s, women's magazines were filled with ads showing smooth, hairless skin as the ideal. An entire beauty standard was manufactured to sell blades. This is where the patent's influence becomes almost sinister. Gillette didn't just invent a product. He engineered a need. He created insecurity, then monetized it. And because the razor and blades model made razors affordable, it became accessible to everyone. Class barriers fell. Rich and poor alike could afford smooth skin. But they were all paying Gillette, week after week, month after month, year after year. It was democracy of consumption built on a foundation of manufactured anxiety. The environmental impact is staggering when you stop to calculate it. Since 1904, an estimated 2 billion disposable razor blades are thrown away every year in the United States alone. That's over 200 billion blades in landfills since Gillette's patent was granted. Each blade is steel, often coated with chromium or platinum. They don't biodegrade. They sit in the earth, sharp and toxic, for centuries. Gillette created the first major single-use consumer product. He normalized disposability. And now we live in a world drowning in disposable everything. Plastic bottles, fast fashion, electronics designed to break. It all traces back to that moment in 1895 when Gillette decided that throwing things away could be profitable. But let's not paint Gillette as a villain. That would be too simple. He genuinely believed he was improving lives. And in many ways, he did. Before the safety razor, shaving was genuinely dangerous. Straight razors caused infections, scars, and accidental deaths. Barbers spread diseases through shared equipment. Gillette's razor democratized personal grooming and improved hygiene. Life expectancy increased partly because of better sanitation, and safe shaving was part of that equation. The patent represented progress. It's just that progress always comes with unintended consequences. King Camp Gillette's personal life was as contradictory as his legacy. He was a socialist who became a millionaire capitalist. He wrote books advocating for the abolition of private property while building a business empire on intellectual property. He believed in collective ownership while enforcing monopoly through patents. His utopian vision involved everyone living in a giant apartment complex near Niagara Falls, working for one megacorporation that owned everything. In a twisted way, he almost achieved this. Gillette became that corporation, and millions of people did become dependent on it, just not in the way he imagined. By the 1930s, the razor and blades model had been copied by dozens of industries. Kodak sold cameras cheaply and made fortunes on film. Polaroid would later do the same with instant cameras and film packs. The model was so effective because it exploited a fundamental quirk of human decision-making. We're terrible at calculating long-term costs. A razor for $1 seems like a great deal. Blades at 10 cents each seem reasonable. But over a lifetime, you might spend $500 on blades while only spending $1 on the razor. If Gillette had charged $500 for a razor up front, no one would have bought it. By spreading the cost across thousands of tiny purchases, he made it invisible. He turned a major expense into a minor inconvenience. Let's examine the actual text of patent US 775134. One more time, because there's a clause that often gets overlooked. Claim 7 states, "The combination with a blade having cutting edges at its opposite longitudinal edges of a holder comprising a guard, a cap, and means for detachably securing the cap and guard together with the blade between them and presenting both cutting edges of the blade for use." Both cutting edges. Gillette's blade was double-edged. You could use one side, then flip it and use the other. This doubled the lifespan of each blade, which seems generous. But it was actually another psychological trick. It made the blade seem like better value, which increased adoption rates. And when both edges wore out, you still had to buy another blade from Gillette. The patent expired in 1921, and within months, competitors flooded the market. Autostrop, Ever-Ready, and dozens of smaller companies started producing safety razors. Prices dropped. Gillette's market share declined. But here's the remarkable part. Gillette remained the dominant brand. Why? Because 17 years of market leadership had created brand loyalty that patents couldn't protect, but marketing could sustain. Men trusted Gillette. They associated the brand with quality and safety. Gillette pivoted from relying on patent protection to relying on brand power. They increased advertising, sponsored sports, and introduced new models with incremental improvements. The patent was gone, but the empire remained. In 1962, Gillette introduced the stainless steel blade, which lasted longer than carbon steel. In 1971, they launched the Track 2, the first twin-blade razor. In 1998, the Mach 3 brought 3 blades. In 2006, the Fusion had 5. Each new model was patented, extending Gillette's competitive advantage. But all of them were descendants of patent US 775134. The original innovation made all future innovations possible. It established the category, the business model, and the consumer expectation that razors should be cheap and blades should be purchased regularly. Today, Gillette is owned by Procter & Gamble, purchased in 2005 for $57 billion. $57 billion. For a company that started because a traveling salesman got annoyed with a dull blade. The razor and blades division generates billions in annual revenue. But the model is under attack. Companies like Dollar Shave Club and Harry's have disrupted the market by offering cheaper blades delivered by mail. They're using Gillette's own razor and blades model against them. And both companies have thrived, until Gillette's parent company tried to buy Dollar Shave Club, which they did for $1 billion. The model eating itself. But even as the shaving market changes, the razor and blades model continues spreading. Software as a service, or SaaS, is just the digital version. You get the software cheap or free, then pay monthly subscriptions forever. Cloud storage works the same way. Social media platforms give you the service for free, then sell your attention and data to advertisers. You are the razor. Your engagement is the blade. And you keep coming back, day after day, year after year, generating profit for companies built on a model pioneered by a patent filed in 1901. There's a philosophical dimension here that's worth exploring. Patent US 775134 represents a shift in how humans relate to objects. Before Gillette, tools were heirlooms. Your grandfather's knife, your father's hammer. Objects had history, weight, meaning. They were repaired, cherished, passed down. Disposability erased all that. A Gillette blade has no history. It's used and discarded. It's utterly replaceable. And in making objects replaceable, we started seeing everything as replaceable. Jobs, relationships, experiences. The disposable blade was the thin edge of a wedge that would eventually pry apart our connection to the material world. King Camp. Gillette died in 1932, disillusioned and somewhat forgotten. His utopian writings were ignored, his social theories dismissed. But his razor lived on, and his patent, though expired, had already reshaped the world. He wanted to be remembered as a social reformer. Instead, he's remembered as the man who taught capitalism how to trap customers in perpetual dependency. There's a tragic irony in that. He sought to liberate humanity through collectivism, but instead perfected the mechanisms of consumer control. So what do we make of patent US 775134 now, more than a century later? It's easy to see it as just a razor, but that misses the point entirely. This patent is a mirror. It reflects our desires for convenience, our willingness to trade long-term costs for short-term ease, our susceptibility to manufactured needs. It shows us how innovation can be both liberating and enslaving, how progress can solve problems and create new ones, how a simple idea, protected by law and amplified by psychology, can ripple across generations and industries. The patent that changed everything was hidden in plain sight because we were looking at the razor when we should have been looking at the model. The razor was just metal and plastic. The model was pure idea, and ideas are far more powerful than objects. Ideas replicate. They mutate. They adapt. Patent US 715134 gave birth to an idea that now dominates global commerce. The idea that the real profit isn't in what you sell, but in what they keep buying. Not in ownership, but in dependency. Not in the tool, but in the fuel it requires. And here's the uncomfortable truth. We're all still shaving with Gillette's razor, metaphorically speaking. Every monthly subscription you pay, every app you're locked into, every device that only works with proprietary accessories, that's patent US 775134 at work. It's the business model that won't die because it's too profitable to kill. It's the patent that expired legally but never expired culturally. It's embedded in the DNA of modern capitalism. King Camp Gillette stood in front of a mirror in 1895 with a dull blade and a revolutionary idea. He wanted to change the world. He did, just not the way he intended. He thought he was inventing a better razor. What he actually invented was a better trap. And we've been walking into it, willingly, gratefully, for over 120 years. Because the most effective traps are the ones that feel like freedom. The most profitable patents are the ones that patent human behavior itself. And the products that change everything are the ones we don't even notice we're using until it's far too late to stop. That's the legacy of patent US 775134. Not a razor, but a revolution. Not a blade, but a blueprint. Not something that changed everything, but something that became everything. And it was hidden in plain sight the entire time.